Welcome to a special series where we interview a host of notable people from the Genius 100 Summit in Los Cabos, Mexico, on the moment that changed everything. Here, you'll learn their secrets to success, gain invaluable insights into what shaped their careers, and key takeaways on what it takes to be a leader in their field.
This is absolutely what we need. This is absolutely the future. We have to get on this.
Talk to people who think so beautifully about big, complex challenges.
G100 Los Cabos, Mexico, a special series on the moment that changed everything.
What do we want to talk about today? Talia, do we want to talk about your books? I mean, do we want to talk the reason behind your books or your business background?
I would like to speak about how my books come about.
Okay, terrific. So, should we take them in order? Or is it the themes that you wish to explore? Or talk about?
I guess both.
Okay.
Basically, I know now that I think in a novel form. When I started to write, I didn't know why I started to write the novel.
Okay.
But I realized that I have the capacity of keeping on a horizontal way many forces, those forces that shape our lives, be it economical, geographical, religious, psychological, societal, whatever is happening all the time, and then the story goes vertically. But the different forces come into play as the story progresses. That kind of horizontal thinking is probably what you call creativity, when you can hold so many different ideas in your head, or balls in the air, as you may call it, and then see how the story progresses in a almost straight line.
So tell me, the title of your first book was?
Puppet Child. That's
Okay.
my first published book. The first one I mentioned in the discussion that we had inside, that I started to write on November 3rd, 1993 at 2:48 p.m.
And how do you remember that date?
I had returned from Moscow 3 weeks prior, where I was caught in the uprising of the Russian parliament against Boris Yeltsin. I had been sent by the USIA, U.S. Information Agency, as they sent experts around the world to teach Russian women business skills, entrepreneurship after the fall of communism. It was my second trip that year. I had gone in May. Now in October, I got caught in the uprising. I ended up on the run from the militia. It was a harrowing event. I was threatened with jail. I actually literally had a bag with me with spray against cockroaches, which I'm sure jails would have. I had tea bags, I had granola bars. I was wearing sneakers and jeans, which only prostitutes in Russia were able to afford.
Yeah.
But if I have to run, that's what I was going to do. And I was, as I'm saying, it's complicated, but luckily, the uprising was quelled. The American embassy, which had closed because it was only two blocks away from what the Duma, they called the Duma the White House, which was the parliament that was on fire. That's where the fighting was going. So the American embassy was closed for 3 days, and the staff was hiding in the basement for 3 days without a change of underwear. But luckily, as I'm saying, the uprising was quelled. They reopened. Somebody whispered in my ear. I was at a lunch with my jeans and sneakers trying to give business advice that's not prostitution. And somebody whispered in my ears that the American embassy reopened. And I went outside. asked somebody to write on in Cyrillic a piece of paper to write American Embassy, and had a $5 bill. Stopped the car because there were no taxi services
Right.
at that time. That's a private kind of initiative. And I was hoping that that guy would take me to the embassy rather than figure out I have a lot more of those $5 bills on me and decide to take me elsewhere and rob me. And they brought me to the American embassy. I had a liaison, and I had not been allowed to take my suitcase from my hotel. I'd left it packed. But he put me in a Marriott hotel. I was never so happy as to see the word Marriott. But my suitcase was in Hotel Sputnik.
But before you were one of the Seven Sisters.
What Seven Sisters?
There's 7 hotels that they call the Seven Sisters in Moscow.
That I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a hotel for $25 a night where we
yeah.
were supposed to be close to the people that we were educating. At any rate, he sent somebody who was able to get my suitcase, I guess on behalf of the American Embassy, and they whisked me out of the country on the first flight the next day. At that time, pre-internet, I wrote to a lot of people who called to say what happened. My poor husband had called our congressman, put the State Department on alert, and people called to say what happened, and I sent out this printed copy of those 23-page report that I wrote to the USIA, why I returned after 4 days rather than 14 days. And on November 3rd, 3 weeks later, I went to lunch with a friend who was a journalist, and I said to her, here is the report, don't ask questions, all it needs is hot sex and I have a novel. So she says, why don't you write it? So I went back to the office, and at 2:48 I became to type Hotel Sputnik.
So let me ask you a question. How did your husband feel about this?
Actually, until then, running my own business and having clients all over the country, I was always, every week, I was on the go, flying around the country to see clients. So the idea, I think he thought my writing was equivalent of keeping me pregnant and barefoot. So I'd be stuck finally at home. But in fact, after a few months, I had the first draft. I signed up for a lot of writing workshops and conferences. I became a conference junkie. And for 3-4 years, every week, I was elsewhere, flying around, studying the art and the craft of fiction writing. I used that first maiden effort as my learning product. Eventually, it was agented, but it didn't get published.
So before you go on, what were you like as a kid?
Interesting. I was very, very serious. I had very strong opinions and values, and I would fight for them, for what's right. And I remember once in my class, we were about 11 years old when the team of the boys needed shirts for the team. And instead of ordering them at the sports store where it's been printed, we all chipped because one of their sisters, older sister, said she was going to make it instead. The whole class, we were a class of 40 kids. Israel didn't have classes of 20, so we were 38 to 40 kids. We all chipped for those 6 shirts, and as soon as they arrived, and maybe the first wash, all the paint went through and they were destroyed. So now we had to order 6 more shirts, and I demanded that she return the money.
Okay.
She take responsibility. And I would say we had some kids that were really, really, really poor. And I was fighting for them. I wasn't fighting. My parents had money. My father was a lawyer. My mother. I mean, we weren't wealthy, but we were
yeah, comfortable.
very comfortable. So my fight was, we can't. One of the kids' father died the year before. The mother was a cleaning woman. He was terribly disturbed. Constantly the teacher was calling her. She was losing a day of work. I could see, I was 11 years old. I could see this poor woman could not clean a house today because she had to come to school. So to ask her to pay for a second time for a shirt, so
Right.
I was fighting for him and for other kids like that, because we had a Yemeni girl from the immigrants. She had lice in her hair. I mean, so that's the kind of kid I was.
And so thematically, your books have kind of taken on the same protectionist.
Yes.
Which one was the most difficult to write?
The third daughter, my last one, took a lot of maturity because it's about sex trafficking. And all my books, I write from the point of view of the protagonist. Some of them, not all. I may have different point of view. I may change point of view, but there is a strong protagonist that goes through the journey. But this one is only through her. And I completely enter the character. I see the world through her eyes, and I hear the sound, smell the smells. I feel the weather on my skin, and mostly I bring the emotions. And it's gut-wrenching to be enslaved into sex trafficking. But I'm there with her as I write the scene. It's like in a dream, when you have a dream sequence and you really feel it's real.
And you're able to put yourself into the mindset?
Completely. I completely go into a trance.
Have you been able to do that throughout your whole life, about imagining what someone else is thinking?
Yes.
Because that's a gift. I mean, that's something that's amazing to be able to do, because you're able to think like someone else, which is interesting enough because that's what I do for my living. It's all about thinking about someone else. So that's kind of your process, I imagine, to be able to put it together. What's the next one?
I have two next one. One is already finished. It's with HarperCollins, but I asked not to release it this year, 23, but wait for 24 for a variety of reasons, some technical, such as I want to make the introduction, the launch in Florida, where I have a huge number of literary events of 300 to 500 people each already signed me up to be there.
Wow.
With my book. So I want to start in Florida in that season. Then I can go, let's say, late April or May and June, do the New York metro area.
Right.
Before summer sets in.
So you work just as hard at promoting your book as you write the book, is that right?
Yes, my head is marketing because that's what
That's
I
your
did
background.
before.
Right.
Right. So I always think, even now, as I'm writing, as I'm not writing, I mean, I'm writing something else, but as my book is not ready to be promoted, I take notes, I take contacts, I prepare little, and then I hire an event coordinator.
Right.
Who would normally, before COVID, they will be sitting right next to me all day, and I would supervise their marketing, their promotion, their PR, all of that.
I have a question for you. We should do this again, okay? Another one of these. But could we do one talking about how you promote your book?
Yeah.
Talia, I know this is short and sweet, but you're going to come back and do this again. This is the moment that changed everything from Genius 100 Visions at Los Cabos, Mexico. Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
Thank you.
To learn more about how you can support G100 initiatives, visit genius100visions.com.